Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Gary's Book Club Book Chat. My name is Jeff Joseph. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications with the Consumer Electronics Association. We produce the annual International CES. Thanks for coming here. We have a phenomenal show today. It's our biggest ever, as Gary Shapiro announced this morning, with over 2 million net square feet of exhibit space. So take some time, wear comfy shoes, get water, and enjoy the show. I'm very excited to be here this morning to interview, as I've said in my tweet this morning, this is like Geek Nirvana. I get Robert Scoble and Shel Israel here this morning to talk about their book, The Age of Context. After we finish this, they'll be over there signing books. So I assume, I'm not going to do a big introduction because I assume you know who they are if you're sitting here, hopefully. And why don't we just jump right into it? I think, Robert, you have some opening slides.
Yeah, so about 20 months ago, I started seeing 5 separate patterns going on in the industry. And what was interesting wasn't each separately, but that they were joining together. And let's just talk about the 5 patterns. Great. We are not moving forward. Can you move forward for me? Thank you. So sensors was one. Last year at the Consumer Electronics Show, I was here, and Nest thermostats have been really popular. There's all sorts of sensors here on the floor. Every one of you is holding 7 sensors on a phone. The Google Glass that's coming out is also sensors. Go next. Wearables was the second trend that I started seeing. Google Glass, the Pebble Watch, the CEO was just on the stage 10 minutes ago. Location data, so the amount of data that the internet has about where we are is going up exponentially. And social data is going up exponentially as well. The Twitter is seeing 500 million tweets a day right now, and that's going up exponentially. So next year, it'll be close to 1 billion tweets. And go on. And then I started seeing all sorts of data innovation. You know, most of the startups now are building on MongoDB that didn't exist 6 years ago, and that's already an old database technology compared to some of the stuff I've seen come out this year. When you mix those 5 things together, and go ahead, next one, it does 2 things for us. One, it gives us highly personalized product. So this Google Glass is my glass. If you put it on, you see my stocks, my weather, my airline tickets, and on and on. And the other thing you're seeing is a new kind of software coming out that's anticipatory. Google Now is a great example of this on the smartphone, that it gets ahead of us and tells us what the traffic is going to be like. It tells us about photo spots nearby and on and on. For business, it means 2 things. Our businesses are going to know everything about everything. And I didn't even understand what that really meant, but we went to SRI, and they have a workstation that actually watches your eyes and watches what you touch and watches, did you actually see the data to run a drone? But Uber, for instance, sees all that data in real time as well. They know every piece of inventory, every customer, every transaction, everything about their business, and it's all in a database. The second thing is that we're going to need to know our customer in very, very deep detail that we don't know today. When we walk through the CES doors today, you guys really don't know much about me. Soon, there's going to be a low-energy Bluetooth radio near that front door.
You'll be surprised, Robert. You'll be surprised.
But you'll know a lot more about me as you hook your databases up to Foursquare, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, and other things, to gather more data on us, who we are, and you're going to serve us differently based on who we are in the world. And the next thing is, we're seeing a new kind of marketing, and we talked about this low-energy Bluetooth radios. In fact, you guys have five radios on the show floor somewhere.
9, actually, for our scavenger hunt. 9 radios, exactly, using iBeacon.
Yep, and so as you walk around with the CES app and you get close to one of those, one, you might win a prize, but 2, you can do all sorts of things. Because I know you're standing at the CES booth, right, or the LG booth, or wherever the radio is, and then I can change what's on your app based on that. And that's leading us to a new kind of marketing that we'd love to talk to you about. I think that's it. These are some of the beacons, what they look like. They're Estimos. They cost $20 to $30 retail, $10 wholesale. They run for 2 years on a coin battery, and they spit a number into the air. And your iPhone can see how close they are to that beacon. By the way, everybody who has an iPhone already has a low-energy Bluetooth radio inside their iPhone. It doesn't do anything yet, but it will by the end of the year. Somebody, the CES app could turn that on, and we could tell who we're standing next to, right? We're going to have a lot of fun as software people with these new radios in the future. And I think that's it.
Thank you for that introduction to the Age of Context. Shel, before we jump right in, is there anything you want to add to the intro to give us a better sense of the Age of Context?
It's a good intro. Robert is the geek among us. I know you called me a geek, and I'm not. I'm a recovering publicist, which might interest you.
A geek of a different sort.
But my interest is what this technology does for people and for business. As we wrote this book, we were astounded at the privacy issues. We never intended to write about privacy, but with the Boston Marathon and Snowden and everything else happening, it became the elephant in our book. And for business, it is a chance for marketing, PR, and other communication skills to modernize, to start doing what marketing is supposed to do, and that's to build meaningful relationships with customers and prospects, something that along the way got lost in the era of mass marketing.
You sort of hit the big issue here as we sort of talk about the ability to collect this data, talk about more personalized, closer relationships. How do you strike that appropriate balance between privacy concerns and all the wonderful benefits you can get out of the so-called age of context, the Internet of Things?
It's delicate balance are really good words for it, because what the book tries to do is neither alarm people nor overly champion it. We're tech champs. We think this stuff overall is good, and even if you don't like it, this stuff overall is. It's like oxygen. You're not going to get away from it unless you move to Montana and start chopping your own wood so that the utility company isn't tracking you. And we try to let business decision makers, parents, health officials understand what has happened, what the tools are, and how they all stitch together. Now, every step of the way in history, all this new innovation has led to unintended consequences. And as we move forward faster and faster, these consequences can be pretty dire. So while we're championing this stuff, we're also warning people to be aware and talking about some of the choices that individuals may have without fully dropping out and moving to Montana.
But as technology enthusiasts or geeks or whatever you want to call us, what is our responsibility and what's the industry's responsibility to help consumers understand?
Geeks wear Google glasses. There's one here and there's one over there. They're everywhere. You got to watch out for them.
I had dinner with the execs from Ford last night, and I told them that they need to do 3 things to get over the freaky line safely and build a brand that people continue to trust. One, you have to tell us what you're doing, what you're collecting. If you go to google.com/privacy, you can see everything they're collecting on you, and it's a lot of data. They have access to every search I do, every email, every calendar item I do, a lot of my TV behavior, a lot of my social behavior, right? They have a lot of data. So one, be transparent. You're collecting XYZ, show us what it is that you're collecting and give us a hint of what you're doing with that. 2, make it correctable. I live on a golf course, and some of these apps, like not Google Now, but some of the competitors, keep showing me stuff about golf. I hate golf. I don't want to ever play golf. It's not interesting to me. I just live on a golf course. So it's a false positive from the sensors that yes, I do live on a golf course. Yes, I do spend a lot of time on a golf course, but I don't care about any of the golf stuff. So let me correct it. Let me say I don't want to see any more golf stuff. And the third thing is, let me turn it off. Let me tell, hey, we're in Vegas. We're going to a strip club for 2 hours. Don't stalk me. Don't follow me. Don't report that to my wife. Don't tell my boss about it. Don't tell my insurance company about it, et cetera, and let me turn it off.
Just your healthcare provider, perhaps.
Actually, Scotty Vest, who builds my jackets, he built a pocket that blocks all transmission from your phones or your RFID tags, right? So we're going to hack this world if they don't do these 3 things, but the companies that do the 3 things are going to be trustworthy. We talk about trust. Well, the exciting conclusion of the book, which ruins the mystery, is that we say that trust is the new currency. That you go through this show and you see all this great stuff, then you see other great stuff that does the same thing as that other great stuff. And then there's an issue of price. It's becoming a commodity very, very quickly. You're not going to use a personal digital assistant because of one feature. You're going to use it because it's on a platform from a company you trust. The companies that act in the most trustworthy ways will compete for our business. Unfortunately, I don't know how we do this in dealing with governments.
That's an entirely different conversation.
My other lesson to Ford, and we just met with the Google team out here on the show floor, is don't be so worried about going over the freaky line. The way you're going to differentiate your products is to go over the freaky line. Think about what Uber does. You know, Uber in my phone, I tell the cab company where I'm standing, and the cab company tells me where they're driving. That's a lot of data, and they have my credit card, right? That's a lot of data that I didn't have to give a taxi company in the past. It is over the freaky line, but I get a lot of utility because they went there. And Ford is thinking about how to take the car into an age where you're going to really ask the car to do things for you. Where is the closest restaurant that I would like? Why don't you pre-populate food that I like? Because if you can follow me around for a month, you know that I like certain things and I don't like other things. So get rid of the other things that I don't like, right?
Good, Shel. I'm sorry.
If trust is the new currency, the more data you have, the more currency you have. And if I'm doing research on a possible new book about the sharing economy, and it doesn't work if you can't suddenly know why you should or should not trust strangers. In the real life, that's really hard. You got to find people who know both of you and blah, blah, blah. But eBay started this a long time ago, and every other company has figured out ways that we can rate each other. If Robert doesn't like his Uber driver, he can write a bad review. If the Uber driver doesn't like Robert because he drank too much and left something he shouldn't have left in the car, then the driver can write another review, and the next time he's back to waving for a taxi like he has to do in Las Vegas anyway. So.
Sounds good, but you can't trust. What's that damn thing that rates everybody?
Yelp?
Yelp.
Yes.
I've had retailers say that they have been tested by people just to put somebody else out. If you can't trust
Yeah, I am in
If
an
you can't trust the
absolutely
system.
awful hotel in Vegas because I trusted Yelp. Also, I was in a hurry. There were other ways of doing it, Robert.
Well, she brings up a good point that these systems can be gamed. They're trying to build more resistance to gaming, but like for instance on Google, they want you to use your real name, and they're attaching everything to one account. Even your YouTube comments now are attached to your name. And by the way, on Yelp, if you only write one review, you don't get displayed on any store. So
Somebody's
you have to write
waving
3
a
or
thumb
4
at us.
reviews. So they're already trying to build a resistance to this gaming system that's coming along. Hey, Gary.
Gary Shapiro.
Oh, Gary.
What's up,
Hi, Gary.
Thank you,
Last
Gary.
time I saw you, you had more hair and you looked a lot younger, but so did I.
I don't think I'm in a position to talk about hair, but that's another issue.
Wait a minute, it's your stage. I have to go.
There you go. But she raises a good context again about not just the gaming, but this whole system sort of built on trust. And it's not unlike driving, frankly, right? When we drive, we sort of trust other drivers to follow the rules and to pay attention. It's not dissimilar.
She also brought up a new SEO. My brother owns a bar, so we think about this a lot. How do people find out about his bar and decide to come into it for the first time? And it is a Yelp rating. So now he has to invest in Yelp. And not just pay Yelp, that's one way to get a little bit better, but also invest in telling your customers, please review me. We had to do that with our book, right? We sent out 800 copies for free in PDF format to people we knew.
Broke my heart.
And well, it broke your heart because, but
It
we
paid
had to
off.
do that to get the reviews on Amazon so that the book would get up on the top of Amazon.
So you're gaming a system in a sense.
And also, when you have 100 books to decide between, you say, oh, this one has 150 reviews, this one only has 10. That tells you something, right?
Is terms of trust and who to trust online, it's a Cold War. It's every round somebody comes up with a really good idea and then somebody comes up with a way of gaming it. Why do the bad guys come online? Because that's where the people are. It's the easiest way of getting, not only that, the penalties aren't as severe and the money's better. So it's going to continue.
As you think of these key issues of trust and privacy, we love all our children equally, but are there companies you think are really getting it right that can serve as examples for others?
I like.
Thanks,
I
look,
mean, I
Shel.
like Uber because Uber lets it all hang out. You see it. It's on your mobile phone. You see the car coming toward you. They have obfuscated your phone number so the taxi driver can't stalk you afterwards, right? Because it's using the Twilio API to make that phone call. So they've done a pretty good job, and it's all there. Google's doing okay, but Google doesn't let you turn it off, and it doesn't let you correct it. So I want to see companies that do all three things: be transparent, make it correctable, and make it so I can turn it off.
More companies are doing more things that are more transparent. When we wrote Naked Conversations, we talked about how blogs are going to force companies to become totally transparent. We were wrong about that, but they did become more transparent. And social media has now matured, and that forces companies to allow themselves to be more accessible to respond to customer complaints and questions. So all of these things move the ball in some direction towards some utopia that we will never reach. But it's getting better.
It's getting better. It's getting better.
You do have to bet on infrastructure where they put a lot of emphasis on security, and that's an ongoing war to make your cloud computing systems more secure and make your humans more secure, right? How many people don't use two-factor authentication on their mobile phones? I use it on every service, and it's a pain in the ass. But I am a little bit more secure than other people who don't use two-factor authentication and don't have a 12-character or longer password that doesn't have dictionary words in it, right? And you have to go through and really think through your security at every level.
Shel?
Well, it's one of the things that's come up in recent times is security and privacy were always on the same side. And in the age of context, in the age of NSA surveillance, they're not necessarily on the same side. You know, in Boston Marathon, people were shocked, absolutely shocked, that the NSA did not investigate a Chechen-born American citizen who was a college student after our good friends, those lovers of personal liberties, the Russians, warned us about him. And then 1 week later, the same people were shocked and dismayed to find out the NSA had tapped into 100 million Verizon phone conversations. And I was one of those people that was outraged in both directions. So right now we're in fairly schizophrenic times when it comes to the issue of privacy versus security.
If the benefits are clear, then I'm more likely to give more information. If I know I'm getting something out of it, then I'm more likely to give up information and give a little bit of my privacy, maybe not necessarily my security, although maybe they go in hand. Have you seen this? When you talk to consumers, you talk to companies, you see that same trend?
I tell people about TripIt, right? How many people have TripIt on their phones?
Love TripIt.
TripIt, one night I was in Chicago. I was in the plane, and TripIt said, your flight's being canceled. Here's another flight out of town. I clicked on it. I bought another flight out of town. And then 2 minutes later, the pilot came on and said, I'm sorry, we're having engine trouble. We're going back to the gate. And we'll take care of you inside the gate and figure out how to get you out. There was 3 seats on that other jet that night. I got one of them, right? I won the game of life that night because I gave TripIt access to my travel plans and access to my phone. And that's a lot of private information. I think TripIt and Uber both have my credit cards even now. So, because I can make it easier to buy a ticket really fast and beat you, in a plane getting out of town, right?
Damn you.
And so when these companies provide utility, we're going to give them our private data, but they have to be trustworthy and give us some utility, not just, ask us up front for our private data without giving us any.
One of the big trends we'll see here this week sort of goes strictly to the age of context. We talk about the Internet of Things. Every device is now smart, collects data, reacts to the environment around it. You talk about wearables. You guys get the chance to talk to companies, see some cool stuff. What are you excited about? What do you think is going to sort of be the winners overall? And you don't even have to give specific products. Well, you can. I can't. You can.
Here at CES, there's several trends this year that are different than last year. Home automation finally is getting affordable, and affordable in quotes, because it's still, to buy a Nest thermostat and buy a Revolve unit and buy some lights, it still costs $1,000 to $2,000. But that's in my category, not Bill Gates' category, right? Bill Gates has had home automation for a long time in his house, right? And it's easier now. It's not so geeky. Bill Gates' system had to be built by a geek who programmed all those devices that he put in his house.
Bill didn't have a problem with finding geeks.
No, Bill doesn't have it. I do. So home automation is a big deal. Wearables certainly is a big trend this year. I think last night at the Digital Experience Show, I saw, 5 different watch kind of companies, or maybe even more, like the Pebble watch that was just here. So wearables is a big deal. TV continues to evolve. We just saw the WebOS TVs over at the LG booth. That's pretty interesting. And cars are really continuing to evolve. It's still not as fast as I'd like it to be, but there's the self-driving or assistive driving technologies are really interesting, and the connectedness of the car is continuing to get better and better thanks to the Bluetooth stacks that are getting better.
Shel?
I'm seeing an awful lot of stuff that to me is faster, better, cheaper. Yeah. And there's no the ground has opened and light has come up this year, but there's a confirmation that trends that have been spotted at earlier CESs are coming to life and are becoming a reality. The one thing that I didn't see live but I know happened was Intel's announcement of an itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny mother powerful computer.
Amazing.
And the capabilities of that go back to when I was a little kid reading Ray Bradbury, someday technology will. Well, someday soon technology is going to. And it's really nice to see Intel, a company I've been wondering whatever happened to them in the mobile age, have something new and groundbreaking. So I'm pretty excited about that one.
This has deep
Anyone
implications.
from Intel, I want an interview for Forbes.
This has deep implications. Union Pacific is putting sensors on the railway to listen to the cars going overhead and run the railway. They're seeing 40 million hits of data from sensors a day. And think about being able to put little computers like that in the railway to make decisions locally instead of having to send it up to a central data center. That's pretty smart, because then you could put a little solar panel there and save cost and make things happen a lot better.
Okay. So we're tech geeks or fanatics, whatever you want to call it. It's all very cool, all very exciting. But does that sound a little Orwellian? Does it sound like, are we headed towards Neo or towards Skynet?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
But there are inherent dangers with that, right?
Yes, there are.
Well, cars kill 37,000 people a year in the United States, right? We drive every day and take that risk.
Cars don't kill people. People in cars kill people.
Yeah. Well, driving a car using technology, it actually kills people. There is a downside to almost every technology that you can come out with, and there's an upside. And as long as there's utility, we're going to be in the game.
For hundreds of years, there's been somebody saying there are some things, Dr. Frankenstein, that perhaps man shouldn't do. And the only change is now we don't say man because that's sexist. People shouldn't do. But, we keep going forward with our technology for the same reason the whale, the hunchback whale, 110 tons of whale jumps clear out of the water because it can. When some geek, that's where it starts with geeks, is sitting around with a couple of buddies in a coffee shop somewhere with an idea that can do this and can do that and can do this, and they have a healthy contempt of the established market leader at the time, they're not thinking about the unintended consequences of privacy, of security. They're thinking of doing something cool that their friends will think are cool, that we'll share with other people who think we're cool, and next thing you know, we have something that takes passengers from, like Google Glass. And so I don't think that we consider it. We spoke earlier at a privacy conference where people were saying, don't you think the government should regulate? Our government hasn't yet enforced seatbelts in all cars in all states. New Hampshire still doesn't require seatbelts. Instead, they put the slogan on the license plate of live free or die. They must really mean it. But the point of it is, what should happen, what could happen, we don't know. We need to keep journeying where we haven't been before and then figure out what we're going to do. Will tech fix tech problems? I hope so. I don't know what else will.
It's certainly been the history in the case, absolutely. Let's turn quickly to big data. So you talked a little bit about implications of data context for different business models. You're collecting all this information. How do you think this big data model will change existing big business models and legacy business models?
If you go over to, there's some huge data centers here in Las Vegas. They're 500,000 square feet a piece. There's 8 of them here in data. And I got a tour of one, and the Wynn Resorts had a whole row of supercomputers that's watching all the data, and they're not even collecting that much data yet on their customers, right? every business is going to have something like that. And so you're seeing people who know how to build a Hadoop cluster, their value is going way up. They're really hard to hire in San Francisco. You're seeing data scientists being hired and becoming rock stars at companies like Bitly, and they're becoming the people who really are running that business. Uber, what is Uber? It didn't change the taxi. It didn't change the car. Didn't change the driver. The driver still gets paid the same way from his boss. What it did was it's data. I have data now about where the car is, and the car has data on where I'm standing. That's all that really changed. So the way you make a new company today is to innovate on data, right? And that's why one of the forces we started seeing was all this new data technology, graph databases, immense pressure on companies like Rackspace, where I work, to make faster speeds possible, because the database usually is the gating factor on speed, right? And so we're putting all SSD in our data centers and all high-speed interconnects to make our speeds faster than Amazon or Microsoft, right? And that's a big investment. And each one of those data centers is $1 billion. Right?
Are you seeing costs come down? And I mean, we talk about sensors. We're seeing sensor costs come down. You seeing the same for SSD drives and other technology?
Yeah, that's why it's possible now to do an entire data center or 5 data centers all SSD. The costs are finally coming down, and it's a must-have. It's not an option anymore. Even Seagate, I'm going there tomorrow, and they make hard drives, right? But they're innovating mostly on high-speed memory. They say that the world of the hard drive is disappearing, and we see that, right? You have a MacBook Air, it doesn't have a hard drive in it anymore. It has SSD, right?
My kids, my 10 and 12-year-olds, are all about Chromebooks, right? So what do they need? They just need to be online, so they just need a quick SSD drive and a high-speed internet connection. Robert, you're known for your love of Google Glass. You're a great evangelist. What's the killer app for wearables, do you think?
Well, the first one is fitness. I mean, the first one, how many people have a Fitbit or Fuel Band or a Jawbone Up or something like that? Yeah, so fitness is the first killer app that came along to get you to wear something. Photography for glass is still my killer app. The thing that really frustrates me is I can't make the workflow work the way I want to with photography, because I want to be able to see a picture on my phone instantly as soon as I shoot it, and it doesn't do that today, and it's frustrating. And so we need Google to get the ecosystem to build together, and that's what we were just talking with the team about. And they know that, but it's hard to get a big company to every piece of the company to work together, right?
Well, let's go that quickly. We just have a couple minutes left. Maybe, Shel, you can address this. We see all this great innovation around the show floor. We got the great Eureka Park exhibitors with the small companies and entrepreneurs. How difficult is it for large companies now to sort of jump on this innovation and turn around the big battleship? What's the secret sauce to be able to do that?
That's two parts. Big companies really want to hop in the bandwagon of innovation. The problem is big companies, by their very nature, have to run like big companies. Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay. The problem is that big companies have to move like big companies. They cannot move with the agility of a startup. That's why the entire cycle of products always begins with innovation from disruptive little companies, and sometimes they get successfully acquired, and the little technologies gain the benefit of size, and they go on to be something great. Sometimes the large systems don't allow a disruptive, innovative group to continue to disrupt and innovate. They need systems in place. They need to worry about the cost of goods sold. Startups don't. They screw it. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it. What? Go home? What are you talking about? Christmas? Get to work. And there's a sense of urgency there, while there's a sense in large companies not too often, but of caution, and they need it. If you're going to change everything, you got to change your talent, lay off people, hire other people, and so I think the cycles that we've seen for the last 50 years are going to continue. Little companies become big companies. When they do, they slow down, and new little companies come along and push them aside.
Talking to Ford and the car companies, they just bought a company to make auto updates possible in the car. And it sounds like a simple thing to make happen, right? But it's not when you have many different kinds of cars, different kinds of equipment in the car. And they bought a startup that figured it all out, and that's how you innovate in a lot of ways. cost them $10 million to buy a little startup to just do one feature. Right?
Acquisition is a good way to go. And this is, we talked about Intel, the Sony keynote. Clearly, big companies can do it. There's a way to get through. Well, I want to thank you all for being here this morning, this afternoon. I want to thank Robert. I want to thank Shel. You can follow Robert at Scobleizer, right, and at Shel Israel. And, yes?
Forbes.com.
And Forbes.com. And they'll be signing books right over there with Gary's Book Club. Have a great CES, and thank you for coming. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.